even beyond the notion of feminism, something about entering your own body and having a sense of your own selfhood and finding agency in that experience. You know, I realize in many respects I'm interested in these underdogs whose arcs to some degree are all about finding agency.
Thank you so much. I knew I wasn't the only one who felt this way.
No. Of course you're not.
Of course, that's what this is. We have to stop fighting it.
Exactly, yes. Yes, and if we are going to give it an offering, we have to do this right.
Yeah, well, we need masks and weapons.
Yeah, and what, a deck of cards with a single queen in it?
That's right. Lottie, you need to make sure that none of your people are here for this, okay?
Yes, of course.
This is just about us.
Yes, I will make sure that they all stay away. The woods will be ours tonight.
Yes.
Tonight.
What? Why are you humoring her? She's homicidal.
Exactly. I just bought us all some time to figure out what to do with her. You're welcome.
Considering her history, it probably wouldn't be that difficult to have her committed again.
That's it. She's a danger to herself and others. We just keep it calm and discreet.
As a medical professional, I can easily call her treating physician.
No. She wanted us to play Russian roulette with poison fucking oolong. We can't just hospitalize her and call it a day.
I agree.
What?
Yeah, why do you agree?
Because this isn't just about her mental illness. We all know what she went through out there because we all went through it too.
Yeah, except we got over it. She thinks it's talking to her again. Have you all forgotten where that leads?
Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today, you know her from so many great movies, independent films, studio films, a lot of television, a lot of quality shows on television, and currently executive producer of Yellowjackets, as well as a director. She directed the pilot and she directed the finale of season 2. So bookends there for the series we're going to talk about. It's so great to have you here, Karyn Kusama. Welcome.
Thank you, Pete.
And wow, so you did the first one and now you've done
the
last one. Was that the master plan for you?
It wasn't really, but it made sense that it worked out that way, you know, because I really knew, I saw the way that the pilot and this finale were meant to speak to each other, which was really cool.
That's so interesting. Of course, you're executive producer too, so you've got input all the way. What I find interesting, and you've done, let me just name off some of these television series that you've worked on as a director: Billions, Casual, Dead Ringers this year, a consultant, Man in the Heist Castle, Halt and Catch Fire, L Word. These are all top grade A shows.
Thank you.
Not NCIS number 12.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been really lucky.
Yeah, so when you come in, and in those cases, you're coming in, you're directing an episode, the template's sort of been set, right?
Yep.
Here, you set the template.
Yeah, it was really exciting. It was really, that part of it was the most fun in making a pilot, was just the sense of really creating a language that could become something to either consciously depart from or stay in the stream of. It was really a nice way to get started.
What was it about Yellowjackets? I can sort of guess what it might have been, but that appealed to you, because if you look at your filmography all along the line, you're an avowed feminist like my wife. You are. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. I mean, in your films, most of the protagonists are female.
That's true.
And this, of course, is driven by women as well.
Yeah. You know, I think the fact that we got to see these women in their slightly more open-ended teenage selves, and then see them as, or at least see some of them as middle-aged women, I just thought that was a really interesting opportunity that I've made a movie like Jennifer's Body that is very specifically about teenage girls, or a movie like Destroyer, which is very much about being a middle-aged woman. But this was the first time I was able to fuse the two interests and really explore character in that way.
And I would think logistically kind of nightmarish.
You hit the nail on the head.
Because of the structure of this show, going back and forth, and really it's 2 series in one in a sense.
It really is. And so it's hard to quantify, but really when you think about it, it's twice the cast, it's twice the story, and then you have to bridge them together and make sure that there's a sense of a through line emotionally and narratively and even visually somehow. And so it was a real challenge to figure out how to make 2 actors feel like one across many characters.
And also dropping clues. We may not know it when we first see it, but if you actually go back and rewatch some of these things, then you see how they act as the series goes along.
Yeah.
It's all there, and I'm sure that's all on purpose by the writing team and everybody else.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the showrunners, Ashley, Bart, and Jonathan, I think all 3 of them were very conscious of staying true to those original ambitions for the show, but I also think they're really nimble, and they are willing to kind of change gears midstream. So I suspect that, some stuff surprised them in the process with their rooms, and then the writer's room, and then some things just became even more true as they kept, working on the seasons.
If you haven't seen the show, I don't want to give too many spoilers because we do this and we try to get people to watch too. So I don't want to say it, but things happen to characters here, and do you know that going in from the beginning that certain characters may not be there the whole run?
You know that some characters, that there's a structure in which it's important that there be surprise for the audience. You know that is a strategy of the show, and that that no one is entirely safe from the brutal logic of the story of the show. But I didn't know exactly where it was headed until about a third of the way into the 2nd season. And then I was like, oh, wow, that's going to be big.
Do all the actors know where it's headed?
They do. They do. They eventually know. I mean, they know. And obviously that's a creative and kind of emotional relationship you need to navigate with the actors to make sure they feel sort of like the goodbyes are graceful and sort of filled with good feeling. But
the casting's amazing. I had Melanie Linsky sitting here in
that
very chair.
I love it. She's so wonderful.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I guess you start with her and then you match. And then that's down the line with the older versions and the younger versions of these characters. How difficult was that in the casting process?
We knew that Shauna was going to be kind of the linchpin or the center of the constellation of actors. But finding Melanie set a tone in terms of, she brings this like effortless humor and a kind of easy, open quality that then can be layered with so much depth and darkness, actually. And that kind of helped set a template for the kind of actors we needed to find who would be as good. And I think we really, hit it out of the park. We found so many wonderful actors to work alongside Melanie and to play as the younger characters.
Yeah, right down the line, you know, and that's important, or the whole souffle falls, I guess. Yeah. If it's not believable in that, it's a unique show in that regard.
Totally. And that is, to your earlier question about the challenge of it, that was the challenge. Like, do we believe, even though we're looking at different actors, can we believe that we're looking at the same soul? And I think we've gotten pretty close.
Are you surprised that it's become such a talked about show and a success.
You know, I said this to the showrunners when we first premiered the first season, and it looked like, oh, people are liking the show. And everyone was kind of shocked. And I was just like, I'm never shocked. I always think people are going to love what I do. But then I'm always reminded that actually I just make things because I love them.
Yeah.
And so this was a great, wonderful, surprising moment where what I love matched up, you know, in time to the audience it was for,
And
that it was made for.
You know,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it had its highest numbers on the finale
Yeah.
that you just directed.
Totally,
You know?
totally. It's really gratifying that people are going for it. It you know, on the page, that initial pilot script was so entertaining, so funny, so smart, that I just had a sense about it that it would do well.
How long would you like to see this show go? Is there a master plan? Or?
I know that Ashley and Bart and Jonathan have talked about a master plan. I know they've thrown out the word 5 seasons. I'm not sure really. Like I think they are still going to have to hammer it out once we're through the strike.
Yeah. Speaking of the strike, we're on the committee, the negotiating committee for the directors who actually settled and got, it looked like a great deal.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think that they're historic gains.
It's historic,
Yeah.
right? The times are changing in this business from when
Yeah.
you started 20 years ago with your first film, Girl Fight,
Yep.
and to now. It's very difficult to keep up with all of this and technology. And it's interesting that you got what sounds like a really good thing on AI, which scares me to death, quite frankly, in every way.
Yeah, it should scare everyone.
I know, but creatively too. And the actors, you know, can just be replaced, and they writers, you can just press a button and come up with an episode of Law and Order that was done 20 years ago, and they'll just reinvent it.
Right. I mean, you could try pressing the button, I suppose, but I think what we really focused on in those conversations was just the value of human creativity, human imagination, and process among people. Like that, you cannot, I don't really think you can have a computer mimic the successes and mistakes that come out of the creative process, you know?
So amazing to me that you got in this deal the promise that we will look at directors as human beings.
Yes.
You would think that would be like a no-brainer.
Yeah. No, but we had to fight hard for that terminology.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the changes here, you started, you know, Girl Fight. I mean, your first film was such a success in the way of getting attention and having people's eyes up. Wow, who's this? Where did she come from? You actually were boxing for a couple of years before you even you when I talk to talk, walk to walk, you really
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to write something that felt when I was writing the script, I wanted it to be something that felt emotionally true to me. And I had already been boxing in this grungy gym in Brooklyn, and I felt like I knew that world really well. And so it was kind of to that old adage of writing to what you know. I was able to actually sort of do that in that case. But yeah, I mean, obviously, since making Girl Fight and having tremendous success with a little $1 million indie, the business has changed considerably, and it's harder and harder to have those opportunities.
The independent world too. Of course, Sundance helped that. You won 2 big awards.
Yeah.
At directing and grand prize, and at Cannes even, where I just came back from. That's a big friggin' deal too.
Yeah, going to Cannes was an incredible experience.
I'll bet on your first film.
Oh, yeah, mind-blowing.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, unforgettable.
And then I thought it was interesting that you jumped to a major studio $60 million budgeted film.
Well, that would be the assumption that I had just sort of made that transition easily. But in fact, I had spent 3 years after making Girl Fight trying to get my next little indie movie that I wrote made. Yeah. And it was just so difficult to get made that I just said, I want to be working and I want to start reading other scripts. And so I did, and happened to get Aeon Flux, which was being made at Paramount. And that wouldn't have been the path I would have chosen if I were completely in control. But what directors come to learn pretty quickly is they're not completely in control of
And how important is that, because you didn't have final cut on something and you learn right away that you want final cut.
I learned that definitely the hard way after Aeon Flux, and though I did go on to make another studio movie and have a really good experience in terms of making Jennifer's Body with Fox, I ultimately wanted to return to a more auteur-driven sensibility, and that brought me to making The Invitation for a very low budget and making Destroyer for an equally challenging budget.
Those last two you mentioned are co-written by your husband.
Yep.
I'm curious what that working relationship might be like.
Well, so Phil Hay, my husband, and his writing partner, Matt Manfredi, they've been working together for 30 years. And I'm the new person in their relationship. And we work as a trio a lot of the time. And what's really nice about it is I get to look at outlines, the cliche of like writers with note cards up on their up on their wall. I get to actually walk through all those note cards with them and really feel the shape of a movie or the shape it's taking, and have input at that phase. Now we have those conversations really early, even before they go to draft. It's great.
It's really interesting. And you mentioned Jennifer's Body, which was written by Diablo Cody.
Yep.
It was her next film after she had won an Oscar for Juno.
Yes.
So that was pretty good.
Oh, it was great. We had such a great experience, and I loved working with her. Just loved it.
Yeah, I've heard actually Yellowjackets described as a kind of war story in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, they go through this incredible trauma, and we're getting little fragments of what that trauma looked like out in the wilderness, which of course sort of serves as this larger metaphor for adolescence or femaleness or life itself in some way. And then we have to see how they continue to live with those experiences as adults.
Yeah. Isn't it great that film lives forever? Because
yes, it is.
Some of your films have come out and not been appreciated at the time. Give them time. Give them 5 years, 10 years. They get discovered again. They continually get discovered, I've noticed. A lot of them.
Thank you. I've always kind of wondered if there's some part of me that jumps into the fray like a little too early, or, is maybe a little bit ahead of my time, or just doesn't quite match with the moment. And I'm so, you really kind of, you sum it up, like, because film lives forever, you can return to it again and again and actually see it in a different light. And I think I'm really so blessed that started to happen with some of my work.
Oh, totally. That's what I always say. My philosophy is, if you haven't seen it, it's a new film.
Yes. Yes.
It really, I watch so-called classics all the time.
Oh, totally.
I base it on whose birthday it is or who died that day and just sort of pick it. It's interesting. But
and I'm sure you find gems and some unexpected stinkers.
Yeah, are things I remember as being good that aren't as
that
good.
Great. Yeah.
That don't hold up.
Totally.
And then others that, like we're talking about here, films that were maybe a little bit ahead of their time and now find an audience, which is so great. I know you had a disappointment with Dracula, with Blumhouse. I think it shut down 3 weeks before you were supposed to shoot.
It did.
Which has to be so frustrating.
Yeah, that was a really hard lesson. I think it's important for creative people to be humbled by the brutal tides of our business, and this was just a reminder that I'm no different than so many other people who are just trying to make personal work, trying to make relevant work, and this isn't a world that's doing all it can to make that kind of work. So every day is a struggle, and that experience kind of reminded me of it, but I also am excited to sort of find the next thing.
Yeah, what are you working on?
Well, it's a little tough with the writer's strike, but there are a couple of, I have a feature that I'm trying to get made right now, and a bunch of TV that I'm pushing forward, and a couple of features actually that I'm pushing forward. So
cool.
I'm very hopeful.
And probably the finales of the next 3 seasons of Yellowjackets.
Perhaps. Yes.
Very cool. Karyn, Kusama, thanks so much for joining us on Behind
Thank
the
you,
Lens.
Pete. It was such a pleasure.